My name is Mackenzie. I am a Principal Strategic Advisor with the Christchurch Call Foundation. Shout out to Galen, my colleague earlier, for foreshadowing my talk a little bit. I'll be telling you a little bit about the activities that we're leading related to AI safety on our Elevate initiative, which is a program that we launched in November of last year with support from Public Safety Canada. It's a 2.5-year program, and it addresses two components of the Christchurch Call Foundation's mandate that came out of the previous Leaders Summits. Those include addressing emerging risks in new tech sectors with a focus on generative AI, and also supporting smaller and medium-sized platforms with open source safety tools. Within the new tech workstream, which is where I'll be focusing today, I'd like to tell you about two of the activities that we have underway. And this builds really wonderfully on the presentation that we just heard from ISC. The first activity is developing an AI safety benchmark evaluation on preventing radicalization to violence. That component of the program falls on the prevention side, and we're looking at how LLMs might introduce risk, but also potentially protective factors over multi-turn conversations with vulnerable users. When we first launched our Elevate program, we were doing a bunch of reading on the existing literature around AI safety evaluations and their relationship to terrorism and violent extremism. And what we found was sort of three notable gaps. First was traditionally evaluations focus on single-turn outputs. Second, they mostly focus on propaganda production or violent attack planning. And then third, we were unsatisfied with the amount of interdisciplinary engagement and sort of interdisciplinary validity that was brought into the design of evaluation criteria and also the human annotation elements of those evaluations. And so our goal with this benchmark is to develop an approach that borrows from the field of mental health and some of the emerging research there on conducting multi-turn evaluations to not so much look at whether or not an LLM produces a really harmful or violative output, but rather the degree to which it participates in a harmful process. This is a really challenging area because the policy violation is a lot less clear. When you're looking at a specific output, there's a clear pass-fail criteria that you can benchmark against. In a multi-turn context, you're really looking at, even though any one single response might not be violative, does the kind of totality of what's been introduced result in significant harm? The way that we have structured this activity is we are, first of all, partnering with researchers out of Voxpol Institute to conduct open source intelligence research to inform the development of our benchmark dataset. That's currently underway, the part that's underway right now. Second, we're putting together an expert panel of practitioners and caseworkers focused on PCVE that have experience working with clients in disengagement programs and leveraging their expertise to develop the evaluation criteria, so the set of principles that we think the LLM should or should not uphold. And then lastly, we're engaging across our multi-stakeholder community at the call to gather input on both the design of the evaluation criteria and whether or not that reflects best practice across PCVE work, but also in the way that we are annotating the results and applying that evaluation criteria throughout the benchmark process. Ultimately, the goal for this work is that we can yield practical insights that can inform safeguards for model behavior, and we want to make sure that this is the most practically relevant piece of the activity. So that's the first side, and if any of that speaks to you, particularly the part around engaging caseworkers and practitioners, please come talk to me. I would love to chat about how we can collaborate on that element of the work. And then the second piece, which falls on the side of standards for AI safety, CCF is developing standards for AI safety following terrorist attacks and incidents, recognizing that many crisis response protocols, including our own, were developed for traditional and social media contexts. They often miss some of the unique threats that are present in AI contexts, both as we think about AI as a potential source for mis and disinformation in the aftermath of an attack, also as a potential vector for exploitation by terrorist and violent extremist actors. And so our standards for AI safety are going to look at both dimensions of this potential threat and consider safeguards and recommended exceptional measures that could be put in place to mitigate harms introduced by AI in particularly vulnerable moments of information environments. This activity will have two components. The first is a technical solution, which will involve developing a prompt library, drawing on the Christchurch Call Foundation's data set of recent events where we have activated our crisis response protocol, and conducting open source intelligence research around those events so that we can develop a library and test a library of prompts from across different, the way that we've seen AI and social media being used in the aftermath of terrorist and violent extremist incidents. And then the second piece will be that policy framework. So the recommended exceptional measures and ways that we can think about introducing safeguards to LLMs to prevent harm following terrorist attacks and incidents. So that's our work today. I'm really encouraged to see some of the complementary initiatives that are being led in this field. I think that the process of developing multi-turn evaluations that go beyond just propaganda and attack planning to consider some of the more social harms is a really, really important area of focus. And I'm really encouraged to see other colleagues leading on similar work, and keen to hear from you all if there's opportunities for collaboration as well. I'll leave it there.